And from wherever you're watching us, from you who is home, you who is watching us in the comfort of your office, you who is watching us on the app, on the website, on all our social media platforms, we welcome you to the show. Uganda We Want is a program that looks at a lot of things, in Uganda: health, education, politics, and of course we know that we are in a very tricky season. That is why we are looking at politics a lot more, because this is the season and the season is ripe indeed. Of course, Edwin Austin Mukalazi is my name. Now today we want to look at the role of religious leaders in ensuring peace before, during and after elections. Of course, when we take a close look at what happened in Kawempe, that was something. From the nomination times, where we had a journalist who was shot, we want to thank God for Ibra's life, because he's now getting to, he's now recovering steadily. But also, not only Ibra, up to now, we still have journalists that are still in hospital because of the effects, or because of what happened during the by-elections on the 13th of March. Now, there's been a lot of chaos and no one wants to own the blame. You remember when questions came about JAT, no one wanted to own JAT, everyone was disowning them. And now, when it came to the elections, of course, everyone is distancing themselves from the chaos. No one wants to admit that indeed we did this, of course, but we are glad that UPDF has promised to take an investigation into this. We pray that the investigations come out after they've done. The results come out after the investigations, because this was really so terrible that this time around it wasn't even selective whether you're a journalist doing your work or not. And at one point we had media houses withdrawing their reporters, their accredited and assigned reporters from the scene, simply because some had been abducted, others had been hit severely. So it was really chaos, but also it didn't end well. You remember in this by-election, we were supposed to have the area member of parliament of Kawempe North, but also a councillor of Kazoa Angola. Now, for Kazoa Angola councillor, we didn't have results. And the EC says, while the counting was on, a group of unidentified individuals came and destroyed the ballot boxes and, destroyed everything. So they were not able to get the results from that. But now, this is the question. Why do we see all this violence? And when we see this violence before 2026, what should we expect? Isn't this a signal that things might be even, because very many politicians have come and said, things will be even more worse. We do not want to believe that. However, there is still hope. We still have a few months to the real roadmap of electoral commission, especially during nomination, then campaigns, and then the real voting. Now, in this period that we have that is so critical, we want to look at the role of religious leaders in ensuring the peace, because at the end of the day, we talk about a peaceful peaceful elections. Now, what role do the religious leaders have to play? With us is, of course, Reverend Canon Grace Kaiso. He is the team leader at Peace, Livelihood and Governance at Interreligious Council of Uganda. Canon, it's a pleasure having you this morning on the show. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, our viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much. And then we have Reverend Wejuli. Reverend Wejuli is not new here. It's a pleasure having you again this morning.
Thank you, Mukalazi. And we want to appreciate our viewers and all the comments they make. And I pray that they will offer us that beautiful and expensive time to view and listen in and contribute to the Uganda we want. It is not a one-day struggle.
Like you said, it's not a one-day struggle. I think we pick it up from there. It's not a one-day struggle. What do you mean by it's not a one-day struggle?
You see, building something you want, it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources. You have to think, you have to plan, and then you get there where you want. So it is not a one-day project. It is a continuous process. So when we say the Uganda we want, which Uganda do we want to see? We want to see a God-fearing nation. We want to see a caring nation. We want to see a prosperous nation. We want to see a stable nation, a harmonious nation, whereby if we say a healthy nation, I think where you can go in hospital and you get treatment, where you can get better education, where you can live in harmony with everybody. So it is a process which we need to undergo and build that Uganda we want. It is not a matter of saying, let it be. It is only by God who said, let this happen, and it happened. But for us as human beings, we have so many mistakes we make when we are doing things. So we need to take time, we need to think, we need to tolerate, we need to persevere and see that we get where we want, even if I will not get there. When the children of Israel started the journey of moving from Egypt to the promised land, it took them 40 years. And the most who were elderly and adults didn't enter there, but they participated in the process of taking the children of God. Moses inclusive, did not enter the promised land, but he did his part and handed over the mantle to the next leader. And that's for us what we are supposed to do in the struggle of building the Uganda we want.
You know, when you talk about the word struggle in this era, everyone says Tolimo struggle. And then when you don't seem to be so rough, then you go Tolimo struggle.
Omuganda gamba obomusoga netatokota naye ebeera efumba. It doesn't mean that everybody must go rough, must go mad, must show off. But you see, it determines from which angle are you approaching. So if you are from the other angle, you are allowed to do anything you think is right for you. But if you are from the other angle, then you may not be allowed to behave like others behave. But it doesn't mean that you are not there. You know, everybody is there. And it is not a die and what, no. We should use our brains to think and make better decisions. You see, some of the mistakes we inherited, people made a lot of mistakes when they are making policies, and even the current constitution. They were addressing something, but with anger. When you look at everything which was there, some people say, this thing is, I think he's after somebody. We shouldn't do things after somebody. We should do things for the better of our nation that will stand the test of time. So it continues.
Okay, the struggle continues. Aluta continua. Well, Canon, one of the things that are really so key is unity. Towards 2021, we saw some of the political parties like UPC and Democratic Party agreeing to work with NRM in order to achieve transition. And now they have come out, they say they don't see any reason as to why these agreements should continue. So they want to withdraw from the agreements and then get back to their own way of pursuing the transition. But is there any possibility, as we prepare for the elections of harmonizing unity among all the players, it be the political parties, because the political parties who keep on accusing Electoral Commission that it is not independent when they don't win, and when they win, the election was free and fair. But so when they're declared winners, the election was free and fair. When they have not, then it wasn't free and fair. But I mean, getting back to the process before, is there a way we can harmonize unity among all the players?
Thank you very much. It is an interesting question. Harmonizing unity. You see, you harmonize something around the thing you have built consensus. You know, elections alone are not able to draw the consensus we want, because elections in themselves are divisive. Because political parties, by virtue of the fact that they are established, they have aspirations.
Yeah.
So every political, that's why we have many, because everybody feels that they are not. This party will not meet, you know, the aspirations that we have for the nation. So the idea, therefore, building consensus or building unity must start with consensus. And that's why you see Inter-Religious Council always believes that for us to really move forward, we need to build consensus on what kind of country do we want. So that even the political parties will be judged on the values that we've set for ourselves. Because now that's the challenge we have. We have no yardstick to guide whether a party is online or offline. You know? Because if we had built a consensus that we want a country where, you know, diversity is not a liability but an asset, so that we celebrate diversity. You know? If that was one of our values of consensus, then we would have used that value to judge. If a party begins to behave in a certain manner, we would be able to challenge and say, but you are getting go from our consensus as a nation. We are saying diversity is a key value for us. You know, and so we must be celebrated. So this kind of behavior, which seems to negate it, you are off. So the citizens need to be, in terms of, you're saying building unity, we need to build consensus. That's why we propose the whole idea of a national dialogue, actually. You know, so that we agree on some basic values that are critical for our existence as a nation. If we had done that, then all the players, you know, we would use that to judge, you know, to evaluate the manifestos, for instance, of the parties, to say, but your manifesto does not meet our standard for an economy that works for everybody, for instance. You know, so these are that is the challenge with your question. That for us to be able to work for unity, there must be some consensus on some basic values.
But besides the dialogue, are there any primary initiatives that have been put forward, especially by Inter-Religious Council, to make sure that you bring the political parties on board? Because some of the political parties are started out of anger. Maybe someone was denied an opportunity, the other side, so they feel they have a people who believe in them, and then they together come up with a political party. But is there a way you've tried to engage all of them, even when we are not yet there with the dialogue?
Yes, we do. We have partnered with the National Political Forum, the forum that brings together all the parties. And we have developed a framework. I think you heard about the peace pledge. You know, so part of our initiative was to say, still, let's agree on what is a minimum that would make our elections meaningful, you know, carry the integrity they should carry, and people behave really as aspiring leaders or people who believe in the people they are trying to represent. So we have agreed on that pledge as the minimum consensus to try and see, and what we're trying to do now is to also look at because each party, every party has a code of conduct. Actually, all key players in the electoral space have codes of conduct. For instance, the security have a code of conduct. The political parties have codes of conduct. Observers have codes of conduct. So we are trying now to work on a framework where we create space for accountability. Because many of the players in the election have signed off on the peace pledge. And so we think that if we create that space of accountability, we have representatives from those institutions. Then periodically we meet and say, hey, but your people are behaving outside the spirit of the code of conduct or the peace pledge. Okay. So that is what we are doing.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Canon. Reverend Wejuli, we have a problem because when we look at what happened in Kawempe, for instance, or what happened in Chisoro, I think these two can act as very good examples. Where in Chisoro, it was Anglican versus Catholic, and it was known all over that even when the winner was declared, someone went to a very big headline and said, this particular denomination has won this denomination. So it ceased to be about parties, even when there were very many candidates, over 9, I think. And it was now denominational. This denomination has taken up this denomination. But when we get to Kawempe, I know one time we were here and we were talking about how they had made constituencies denominational. That in this particular, it is this particular religion to take over and all that. So, as we prepare to get into, because the atmosphere is becoming tense and tense and tense every now and you realize there is now a lot of fear among people. They're already afraid of what is going to happen in 2026 if a by-election can cause all this kind of violence. Then, so as we are in this season, we are preparing for the time to come. What are religious leaders expected of?
Okay, thank you. But let me start from Kawempe. When you look at the setup of Kawempe, Kawempe has several factors that you may not compare with some other parts of the country. It is very unique. One, the majority there of the population, believe me or not, they are Muslims.
Yeah, that's true.
And you cannot expect a number of non-Muslims to go for nominations as candidates compared to what? To Muslims.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that it became an issue of being Muslims taking over that constituency. But it is its nature. They are the majority there. Then two, they did not deny anybody who is not a non-Muslim to register and show up for elections.
They showed up.
They showed up.
Yeah.
So now it is upon the person who has shown up for elections to convince the electorate. And of course, you cannot eliminate the issue of religion. Because our background, when you study it very well, it is not very far away. We are just trying. These are some of the things I said. We are in a struggle of transforming our societies to know that even if here we are the majority, this is the best candidate. But if you show up and you are not the best candidate, you are not convincing the people, and then it doesn't mean that it was influenced by the religion. That one.
It's a mindset that people have.
It is just a mindset.
If you're not of this particular religion, then you cannot be a leader in this particular place.
Yes. And then it too, when you look at Kawempe, for the last 25 years, or ever since we started electing in Uganda here, NRM has never won Kawempe. You check with the history.
Yeah.
So now, it is a strong hold
of the opposition.
For the opposition. If opposition loses Kawempe, then it will mean a lot to NRM and opposition. So when you look at the setup of something, it gives you the background, and then you see why things are happening. But also, when you are going to Kawempe, you have to be sensitive. There are so many groups of dwellers there. Kawempe has a good number of slums.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know what happens in slums. What message do you carry when you are going to these people? Sometimes they look at themselves as people who have been abandoned and marginalized. Now, when you are packaging your message and you are going there, you have to either identify with them or you don't go there. Or you go there and face it rough. So they will only understand the language they understand. So it depends. And where such communities are, when you are going there, what do you expect? What do you expect? So it is not all about religion, but it is not bad religion to influence, but not to go into politics. Now, when we talk of God-fearing nation, are we going to separate the politicians out of this group? Who are the politicians? These are the baptized people. These are the Muslims. Are the politicians. Tomorrow, I will see you, maybe a politician, outside there. I may put off a collar and say, now I'm going for politics. There is no a group of people who are politicians and a group of people who are religious. But for us, we are only leaders in religious fraternity. We are only leaders. And our work to ensure that there is a peace before, during, and after elections is where the question is. The entire duty is for the state to see that there is peace before, by putting in place all the reforms, all the guidelines, and to see that there is no violence. It is by the government. So our work is to see that we advocate and demand. But now, what is perturbing people is the how question. don't bother about the forms, but bother about the function. So the how, we cannot run on the social media how we are doing our work. But one of the duties or roles is to pray. 2 is also to tailor our sermons and align our sermons with the current situation. If you are not going to talk about politics, but you schedule some few minutes and remind you people about the dangers of violence in elections. Because in this world, I have never seen where a business community gang up and overthrow government or cause violence. It is always by politicians, 2 or 3. They can start like as if they are joking and they overturn the whole system. So we need to help our people. 1, we can only help them when we are in good terms with the Electoral Commission, where we draw the information they want, because they have all the information for civic education to help our people to see how we take on the process until the end of it. But if the worst comes to worst, then we have to prepare for arbitration as religious leaders. They will run and come. So if I want to repeat myself always, if we are mingled, we are part of the problem, and then solving that problem will become so complicated. Therefore, religious leaders should do their role. 1, pray. 2, advocate. Have talks with the government and responsible agencies. Have time even to talk with the security. I remember, was it 2021 elections, where RCU had to meet all up the CDF and discuss all these things that could cause violence in the country. Nobody is interested in seeing this country on fire. For this 38 or 40 years or so, everybody has done a lot. I have something to protect. If I don't have it, I have a name to protect it. I have a life, my personal life, to protect it. So I wouldn't encourage, and we need to say this on our pulpits, every space we access as religious leaders to help our people. We shouldn't fight to change leadership. Or sometimes you find people fighting for the LOC1 elections, but they are going to remain in the same village. You beat your neighbor, you beat your wife, you beat so and so, because you are not interested in that person who is standing for that seat. No, that's backwardness. So our role is to advocate, encourage people. Actually, when it comes to time for putting right with the registers, we need religious people to help people, to guide them, to support them, and encourage them to go and see that their names are there. It is constitution for everybody to go in for elections. And actually, if they fall back, then we'll leave politics for wrong people and they'll put in place wrong leaders. So we are there as mouth for the speechless, but also salt for the world.
Thank you so much, Reverend Canon. The Interreligious Council motto, if I can say, or slogan, is religion for peace. And that is very, very important. Now, from what Reverend Julie has said, these are the very people. So the violent people out there are the ones that come back to church on Sunday or during fellowships or any other gatherings. Now, the question is, where do we lose it from? Because if in church they're not violent, in church they're humble, and when they go out, they get violent. because these are the very people that cause the commotion, that cause the violence that we do not want to see. Now, where do we lose it from?
Okay. Violence is not, it's caused by many factors, let me say that. You know? So the question of addressing violence has got to do to address some of those factors, especially like if you're in a competitive game. Take soccer. There are mechanisms that are set to ensure that there is no violence.
Yeah.
You know, there are barriers. There is a demarcated area field where, you know, the supporters are not supposed to encroach, only the players. You have the referee, you have the lines person. Then there are other mechanisms that help the referee to be able to make the right decisions. And the rules are known by everybody. You know, the rules and expectations of the referee are very clear to the supporters as well. So the problem of violence in a situation like that could either be that people are not playing according to the rules. So that sort of creates an injustice. So people may respond to say the referee, no, is biased. See, it could be that the players are not protected. Like when they come along the lines, they are hit or by bottles and whatnot, so that notice is sure for them. So what I'm trying to say is that as Interreligious Council, when we are looking at the issue of violence, we are trying really to address what my brother has been saying. You know, we try to look at what are people playing by the rules, and the people may not know what we do. We actually engage with the stakeholders on these issues. Just before the Kawempe election, the Council of Presidents met the Electoral Commission to raise concerns about the signs of violence and the interference of various stakeholders into the process. We raised those issues with the Electoral Commission and cautioned them about their role as the referee to ensure that the process is just. And we have done that over the years, not only in elections, but when there are issues in the country, we normally identify who is the duty bearer here. Is it the Inspector of General Police? We work, Council President, they go and have a meeting with the Inspector General of Police, and we raise these issues with him and concerns with him. It's unfortunate that sometimes you, the media, don't pick up some of these engagements that we make all the time. But we are very proactive, actually, in terms of engaging the duty bearers, because we believe that as you're here, and if people are not satisfied with how you conduct a program like this one, you would prefer that someone should come to you privately, probably, and actually point these things out to you. You are more able to receive, you're more receptive to that kind of approach and change than when people go to the social media and say, this guy doesn't know, look at him, how he dresses, how he laughs, how he does what. You feel deflated. And the tendency, our human tendency would be to say you want to fight back and to prove them wrong. So we, as IRSU, have chosen a methodology that we think is more effective in engaging with the duty bearers over issues for which they are responsible for. So that's how we do it.
So someone actually was here accusing IRSU of doing a lot of good work behind the curtain. And they say as long as you still do the work behind the curtains, they will still come for you as people who have kept silent on things that, on operations that Ugandans are going through.
It is not true, actually. It is not that, because you see, if we were to have a place where all the sermons that people preach on a Sunday or Friday or Saturday, you will see that the religious leaders actually are condemning these kinds of behavior. The challenge, of course, is that we want other people to change, but we ourselves don't want to change. So we want peace. But you ask many of the people who are complaining, how do they relate with the people in their families? How do they relate with the people in their clans? How do they relate with the people they work with? You may find that there are a lot of discrepancy between what they appear to be fighting for and their practice. That's why in the religious leaders in places of worship are constantly reminding people, because you see we are rebellious nation. we are weak. Yeah? We fail. So we need constant reminding. How we remind each other is probably people want us to do it differently. But in the church, we are always saying, you all belong to us, whether NRM, whether whether DP, you all belong to us. We have a responsibility over you. And so we must communicate in a manner that does not disrupt the possibility of a continuous engagement. So all those things influence how you do things, I think. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's some gap in terms of civic education. People to know how to act, to live within the rules, how to raise things that they are not happy about, so that when people are aware of those things, maybe we can improve the way we work with each other.
Thank you so much, Canon. Reverend, as Lent was starting, in one of the sermons, I think the Archbishop was at Parliament, the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, and he said he was condemning the acts of the police of beating people. But he said sometimes the people also provoke the police to beat them. And he said, so we should all make sure that don't provoke the police, but also the police should treat people in a human way. But of course, people are interested in the other part, where he said sometimes people provoke, and that was another story on social media. Because someone, I think, didn't get the entire sermon very well, because sometimes we listen to only what we want. But you see, this was before he was talking about something that had happened during nominations of one of the candidates in Kawempe. And then the violence during the elections was even worse than what we saw in the nominations. I think a few journalists were injured, but in this particular one, all journalists that were on ground, unless you didn't have anything identifying you as a journalist. But this was just a small group among the many that might have been hurt in that violence. So, in such a situation where, when you speak, and things seem not to be changing, do you go back on and revisit or revise the mode of communication, or should we expect an engagement by the players, Electoral Commission and the security agencies, to ascertain what really was the cause and how it can be handled?
Thank you. I want to quote you well, that His Grace was addressing Parliament. And he was so particular and categorically talked about it. If he was maybe in the church somewhere or at a funeral somewhere, then we would say he addressed the wrong audience. But if he took courage and he told the host who invited him, the speaker must have been there, or deputy.
The deputy speaker.
And all concerned people. The parliament was almost full. Now, I liked his approach. He advised both sides. the one who is oppressed and the oppressor, after identifying what could be the cause. And he boldly said it. Yes, these people are brutally beating people. That's very wrong. That's very wrong. But also people has a role to play. Why should you provoke the security agencies? Play your role, and then you leave them also to play their role. He ended there.
Yeah.
Now, if you talk about something and then it goes ahead to happen, it doesn't mean that you promoted it. Actually, maybe we could even conclude and say, if it happened like this, what if we had not talked about it? So, our work, for us, we have no courts where to take people who commit crimes, or prisons, or police custodies to arrest. But our work is always to remind the people, either about what is going to be the repercussions, and they get prepared for it. So now when it comes to time of those repercussions, the reactions, you will come to us and we say, we told you that the route you are taking was wrong. The whole issue of militarizing the electoral process and the election itself is bad. It's bad. And when you look at what happened in Kawempe, both parties tried to militarize the process.
How?
You see, when we have a bird, and that bird is so jealous. In Shoga it's called the Butu. I don't know how it is called in Uganda. We constructed the church and we put glasses in the front door, the main entry. So one day it was passing, and then when it looked into the glasses, it saw another bird. So when it branched, the other one also started walking, coming towards it. So this bird started fighting, and you know what it was fighting? It was fighting itself. But because of the camouflage of the other reflection in the mirror, for it thought it was a real bird it was fighting with, and it broke the glasses. It was a real struggle. We could chase it. Then it comes back. You see, when I come here, I a reverend, and then I put on a tag of a press, and I don't work here. And maybe it is not your uniform, but I've put there press, and I don't belong anywhere. So where civilians are decorated themselves with ranks of generals, colonels, and then you are going to interface generals and councils and colonels. You see now, when a general sees a general, will never take it for granted.
Colonel, let's take a short commercial break. Reverend, let's take a short commercial break. When we return, we are going to pick it up from there.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Welcome back from the break. This is the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV. We are in our second hour of this show, and just to let you know that you can be part of the conversation by sending in your comment on the numbers that will be displayed on the screen. But as well, you can get on our social media platforms. You can get on YouTube and comment on the video, or you can as well comment on Facebook. Your comment will reach us here and it will be responded to. Canon, I mean Reverend Wejuli, before the break, I cut you short. You are still telling us about the two generals that have now met.
Yes. The other general is a civilian general, not trained, but is putting on the decoration of a general. And you see, in politics, a very small thing like this and security, they will not take it for granted. For me, my advice and suggestion is that as civilians, let us play our politics as civilians. Put in your party uniform, leave alone the ranks, leave alone the titles. That will attract other issues. Because now, when you leave that and you say, what they are doing is good, everybody will find them now buying clothes from the market and decorating themselves. So when it is at night, nobody will know that this is a true general or a fake general. So we need to know our boundaries. However tiny they are, we should know. Being a political party, the one person asked a question, what about in your religious fraternity, there is Salvation Army? They dress, they have capes, they have ranks, but they are registered as a faith in the country, and they are known. And even their leader here in Uganda is a territorial commander, Colonel. We have captains, we have what, but they are not in the political arena. And once you decorate yourself and you're in the political space, then automatically you are attracting issues. So for me, I want to take this opportunity to help our political leaders. Let them put on their political party uniforms, but plain. Let it be NRM, let it be NUB, FDC, PF Wave. We are somewhere at a barrio and I saw a very big mess coming up because people were building gangs around themselves. Others were on chains, others put on helmets, others with ranks, others with batons protecting this leader. That one is very bad. Let us remain plain, civilian, and politic. People will make decisions and elect us. So don't compare yourself with the government. The government is the government, and tomorrow you'll need these very soldiers. Because now here to build an army like UPDF, it is not easy. So when you want power, don't mix up the security agencies in the civilian politics. And if you mix and you confuse them, then they will not let you perform well.
Okay.
Yeah, once they come into politics.
Thank you so much. Canon,
Yes.
one of the things that actually bring, I think, a lot of this commotion is hate speech and misinformation. And you realize that hate speech has already started boiling up. It was seen in Kawempe and it has been witnessed everywhere. Every time we have elections, hate speech comes up, and some people's anger gets charged to the brim. But as religious leaders, how do you or how can you address and mitigate this issue?
Well, human beings will want to express their dissatisfaction in many ways. Sometimes people fight as one way of expressing their dissatisfaction. Otherwise, other people fight through what you're talking about, using words that are derogatory. And politicians have that tendency, of course, to want to put the other down and to prove the others that, they are better or they are the best. It is a serious matter, actually, because hate speech attacks character, and especially where the narratives that are used are either meant to inflame religious, feelings or anti-feelings, or whether they are intended to just to put the person down. And so, as faith communities, we believe that every person has their own dignity, and that it is important for us to be able to uphold the dignity of people, not to put people down. Everybody was created in God's image, and they therefore carry that value, which is not determined by what they believe in, what they have or don't have, or which part of the country they come from, and ethnic groupings they belong to. So for us is to affirm that every person deserves to be treated with dignity. That's why when issues of violence come in, we condemn them, because they undermine people's dignity. Now, when it comes to the political arena, it becomes important that people play with facts, because the people are interested in what are you going to do for them as an aspiring leader. What are you going to do for them? And you have, if you are a leader, you have a manifesto. Sell your manifesto. it is a sign of immaturity for people to live, not to engage around facts and things that are right, are known to be right, and to begin to engage in character assassination of other people. So for us, our role really is to help our followers to honor and respect people, to express themselves, because that is also constitutional, that people have made choices, and provided they exercise those choices within the law, then they should be given space, but not in a way that undermines people's character, that undermines what people believe in. So we think that the whole issue of hate speech for us is serious, and we are going to start a campaign where we tackle this a bit more positively. So we are planning that first we are going to have regional engagements with the stakeholders to help them again appreciate that an election is not the end of life, and that they need to develop other criteria to judge the people who are worth their votes. It's not just enough to vote anybody, but what is the criteria you are going to use? What kind of leader do you want? And therefore help them to think of other forms of criteria they can use, instead of just using religion, instead of using because my father was UPC, so that's the criteria we use. I think we want to help them think through what kind of effective leaders we are looking for at this particular time in our country. We are hoping also to do a campaign around messaging, positive messaging, to help people know that the country is more important, than all of us. So we will develop slogans to try and inspire people to begin to think differently and to act differently. Okay. So we are actively cooking, as it were. And very soon you will see that we are going from region to region to engage, to sensitize, to prepare people for elections in a way that we think people will act as responsible citizens, and that institutions will also work within the confines of their code of conduct. This is really our burden, by the way. Okay. And even coming here is really another sign, because this gives us the space to be able to speak to many more people, and to underline the important values that we need to go with in the election. Election is not the end of life. Election is a means of change of leadership. It gives us an opportunity, to start. So it's like, I always give the example of God believes in fresh beginnings. Every day the sun sets off in the east, and sets in the west. Yeah. Now we don't see the sun starting in the west the following day. It starts in the east. A real demonstration that God is a God of fresh beginnings. That so elections provide that. That's part of God's character also. That we should be anticipating and giving ourselves the opportunity for fresh beginnings. So it's not that when the way in which your day ended yesterday, that's not the verdict for your life. There is a possibility for fresh one. Beginning. And therefore how responsible we take that for ourselves as individuals, to know that this has happened, but I can start over again. Even nations can also have the opportunity to start afresh, and that's why elections provide that. That people now can evaluate and say, where are we? Where do we want to go? Are we on the right track? So what changes do we need to make? Because here we're talking about the future. Elections are about the future of our country. Then to not be taken lightly. I sometimes hear people speak as if, it is you either want to take Waraji or night. Elections are not like that. You know, we must give them the seriousness that they deserve. We are about the future of the country. What do we want to see? What are we seeing? What do we want to see? Where do we want to go? So, and we have lessons learned from other nations. You know, and also, you know, we are part of a history as a country. We have a history. So elections must also be informed by experiences, you know, that we have gone through, and be asking, you know, we've had transitions. How helpful those transitions have been? Where have we gone wrong? What must we now check? You know, these are the conversations that we should be having instead of the kind of petty engagements that people are talking about. And I think our role as faith communities is to deepen people's understanding of their responsibilities as citizens in shaping, building, nurturing a nation that has a promising future. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Canon. Reverend, how can religious leaders leverage on their moral authority to hold, especially political leaders, accountable? Because I believe it all starts with the political leaders. Because when a political leader, the top leader speaks, the subjects follow. So how can you hold them accountable of promoting peace and I mean peace and upholding democracy and during and after elections? Because pre might be okay, elections might be non-violent, and then what happens after? Because Uganda has a record of what happens after elections, which is very, very bad, and we don't want to go back there.
Thank you. For me, I think Canon has done it well. We need to know who are these stakeholders in this space. And like I told you, the stakeholders are the churchgoers. Sometimes when they come to us, they humble themselves, and they can even crawl and say, touch me, touch my head, you're just next to God, I want your blessings. And sometimes they quote Bible verses. In most cases, they don't, a number of them try to avoid us. They will come and say, I have a number of engagements, I'm running here and there. But there is a particular case I would like to quote here, whereby there is a group of politicians who have made their, should I call it a cluster or team. Maybe when they come at a funeral place, they disorganize the public address system after their candidate or their principals have talked. They make a lot of noise, they parade the people to give money. And it makes the whole thing a total mess. So like Canon said, we need to engage them at different levels. And this is what he's saying is what we are preparing. As per now, we cannot know who is going to contest for such and such a position. And when that rightful time comes, we will engage them and say, please, look here. This Uganda is small, but is enough for everybody. And now you are contesting 10 people for one seat like this. In Kawempe, they will take only one person. And all of you, 10, you are contesting. How are you going to control your crowds? Because if you fail to control your crowds, it will attract the security agencies to come in. If you are moving with the unruly crowd, they are causing havoc, or they are causing traffic jam, they are destroying people's property along the road or the street, then your views may not be my view. So police or any security agents will come to protect this Ugandan who is not in that group moving. And maybe you will be moving, but passing nearby somebody who is a member of the other group which you don't belong to. And then maybe they will throw a stone or a word, and you start from there. That's when you will see that you attract these people to come in pretense of protecting this one who is not part of you. So our work, like Canon has said, we need to organize ourselves and see that we talk to these people right from the top. Those who will be contesting for presidency, MPs, up to the lowest, to see that we speak to them and ask them to control their people. Because now these are people who are talking hate speeches. If they are not controlled, actually, if they belong to a certain organization, instead of gaining members, it is losing. Because you need everybody. Now, if you dehumanize me, you shame me, you abuse me, you use obscene words, then I will say I don't fit there. I cannot join you because you are abusing me. I can only join you when you are giving me what I think will help me. And of course you need me. Politics is all about numbers. It is not all about the many words you can speak. The many abuses you can speak. But it is all about numbers and respecting everybody. Because everybody here in Uganda in our politics still matters. Even an old woman down there who will be led and say put here, that woman must be taken care of. So it is key to see that we bring these people, they are our own, and we speak to them, we help them to see that if they have bad people in their groups, they should avoid them. They should also avoid languages of provoking other groups. Because one day they will meet where there is not enough security. They will kill one another. And these are some of the issues Canon, as our leader in that regard, is organizing to see that when it comes to that time, we'll be handling. I think that one will help us to see that we have peaceful elections. But also when we are handling the contestants, we also need to handle the duty bearers. We need to talk with the Electoral Commission, we need to talk with the police, we need to talk, because you cannot say that UPDF will not come in, because there is no where you will stop them from coming when they are invited by police. Because once you go viral, then they will say, we need some other arm to support us. And this one will not happen only in opposition, it will also happen in NRM. I have seen where NRM primaries turn into war. People kick one another. And you see bullets shooting. So it is not this way, but it is all over. So we need to address it. Like Canon said. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend. We are taking another short commercial break. When we return, we shall now respond to your questions and concerns. I see some have started coming through, and yeah, please keep them coming through. Those that we shall be able to respond to shall be responded to in the time we have. We are coming back.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Welcome back once again. We are still in the Uganda We Want, and this is our last part of this show. So that is why we shall now open up to your comments and concerns. So in case you call and the phone doesn't go through, it's not that the phone is off. So you can as well follow up with a text message or a WhatsApp message. So do not limit yourself to only phone calls. But we are still looking at the role of religious leaders in ensuring peace before, during, and after elections. Canon. Now this is a question for both Canon, Canon and Reverend Wejuli. And we've talked about this, but it seems not sinking in the hearts of our viewers that when social injustices happen, there is a way we as the laity or as the Christians expect you to talk about them. Even when you are doing a lot of work as IRSCU, there is a voice that we need to hear. And that is why, of course, people end up crucifying some religious leaders simply because they think they are quiet, even when they are doing a lot of work, especially when it gets to advocacy. But how do religious leaders navigate the delicate balance between advocating for social injustices, but also maintaining their political neutrality during and after political periods?
You want me to go first?
Yes, I want you to go first.
How should we maintain our political neutrality?
Yes.
How should we live out our prophetic ministry? I think that's what we're asking. Religious leaders are human beings, so they have interests. Let's say that. So some of those interests might be too personal. Some of those interests might be shared broadly. Personally, you know, that's why you have these issues of. In a region where people think that we need our man. Although within that, you still may have a religious leader who is sympathetic to his immediate ethnic group, or clan. We want ours from the clan. So those are realities. We have to be realistic. Now, when you get into positions place certain limitations to us. And I think that's where maybe our religious leaders fail to understand that when you call it a position of leadership, especially of faith leadership, then you must allow certain things to die in your life. That's how I could explain my own experience as a priest. There are things that had power over me when I had just become a priest. With the time, those things lose grip over me. As I deepen my understanding of my calling and responsibility and the level of accountability that is expected of me. So that is a challenge that some of our religious leaders have not allowed themselves to grow out of some of those petty things. As religious leader, your perspective to understanding the well-being of people must be total, must be to everybody. You can't be working from a narrow ethnic group as a religious leader. I think that is a sign of lack of growth in your understanding of faith and your deepening in understanding God, the God you serve, You know, the God who is inclusive, who gives rain even to those that don't worship him. So that's first for me, that it is really a sign that many of our religious leaders are still very parochial, very petty in the understanding of their calling. So, and because we are all growing, those are areas of growth. And that's why Interreligious Council is going to strengthen through its Peace and Leadership Institute to equip our religious leaders to begin to think a bit more deeply in terms of what is your calling, you know, and the context in which you serve also must inspire you to certain things. For instance, God is about justice. So as a religious leader, there is no way you can run away from not challenging situations of injustice. You know? And I think if our followers feel that we're not doing that enough, that is a challenge that we need to take on, to accept as religious leaders, a weakness that we are not fully living out the fullness of the gospel that we claim to be preaching.
Okay.
So I think that is my take on the issue of balancing. It's not actually balance, it's actually growing into the depth of your calling and understanding scripture. And of course, there is a tendency for religious leaders to think that you as a priest or a pastor, you know, you are about self-preservation. It is not. The gospel is constantly placing us in areas of danger, you know, and we must accept to pay the price for what we believe. I was ordained at the time of Janani Ruum. I was the last group. I was among the last group that he ordained in 1977, 2nd January, and he was murdered the following month. So I followed the events that led to his death. He was not living about himself. He was not concerned about his welfare as a person. His heart was about the way in which the leadership, political leadership, then lived out their calling and mission. That they are not life-giving. You know, it was so brutal. So he stood up as a religious leader. The cost comes next. There will always be a cost for us to stand up for what is right and be biblically right. Okay. Then what was the other question?
No, that was the question.
No, you had another question.
No, that was the question. That was the question, actually. Yes. That was the question.
Yeah.
Yes, Reverend.
Political neutrality, like you have always said.
And social injustice.
And social injustice. One, our places of worship and space is open for everybody. But they shouldn't take this. There are some cases around the city and maybe elsewhere where you will find a religious leader saying, for me, I'm for so and so, 24/7. No. You will find a religious leader who is also dressed and decorated himself
in a party uniform,
in a party colors. You see, when we talk of religious leaders, we have a number of categories. Which particular category are you taking for a case study? So, for me, I think that if we say that we don't want politics in the church, then we shouldn't allow anybody to speak from there, whether it's our own or not our own. But if we say that we allow people to speak inside the church during or after service or elsewhere, then we should allow everybody. But I wouldn't encourage any religious leader to be partisan, because when we become partisan, the outcome will not be good. And by all means, we should leave their space for these people to trust us, to come to us for reconciliation, for dialogue, for negotiations. And if we do not do that and leave there that space for them to trust us and say, I think let me go and open myself to my priest, to my sheikh, to my pastor. And maybe sometimes they even draw conclusions and say, even if I go there, he's already near him. Even if I go there, he already identifies with the opposition. That's very wrong. Yet, we have the right also to make choices and even to vote. But we shouldn't expose what we are. We should maintain this neutrality you're talking about.
Okay.
Because our crowd, our congregations. I had a congregation where my head of late was FDC. And people elected him in the church. Why did I accept that? Because constitutionally, FDC was a political party in Uganda. So he had a right. That one shouldn't bar him from participating in the church activities. So when we are talking with these people, we shouldn't show that we love this more than the other one.
And also, actually, because you see, as you say, we have a role.
Yes.
We have the mediating role. And you're in the elections, you have situations of conflict. And so if you have been partisan, you can't play the mediating role. You know, and that can be a very serious issue in a community where people would have converged around you to say, let's go to the priest so that he can help us to help mediate and harmonize our relationships. So that mediating role also should put a certain constraint on us in going public in terms of political support.
Okay.
Yes, because nobody will trust you. Bebamu. So I want to call upon my fellow clergy outside there who are viewing that take this seriously because ours is to help to enable people do rightful things. But with the politics can divert someone basing on what they are targeting. If somebody is targeting that huge salary from being an MOP, can talk anything, can do anything, can even smear anything, can do character assassination. But for me, as a religious leader, my work is to see that they do it preserving other people's dignity, respecting one another, because after campaigns, these people are going to remain in the same locality. And especially these younger people we are using to beat one another, to abuse one another, to do all kind of thuggery. They will end up after politics living in that very village where they fought from, and that enmity will never end. And now that is our work as religious leaders, to see that we caution our people about the outcome. So neutrality is very key.
Thank you so much. Actually, that answers the other concern we had before we started this show that someone had raised earlier. But there are concerns here. Reverend Wejuri, this is yours. Reverend Olimbiemu, because they are registered trademarks for UPDF and everyone knows about them. So when someone puts on a red overall, it is not a UPDF registered trademark, however much they decorate it. That is why UPDF is wrong to come against that person who is putting on that, because it's not their registered trademark. Therefore, I think that they should let people be.
Yes, that is assumption. Eh?
Yes.
And which is very okay. Maybe he lacks information. You can only decorate yourself with the military ranks when you are registered agents to supplement on security. Maybe you're a security organization. Maybe you offer security services. That's when you can decorate yourself with those ranks. And even write on yourself a general, a colonel, a captain, and you think it is a simple issue? It isn't. And if I'm a liar, the time will tell. And I want to warn younger people outside there, unless you are registered, just put on your overall, red, plain, without any rank. You will not attract anything. I said people should put on their uniforms. Let it be yellow, blue, red, purple, anything. But don't decorate yourself with those ranks related to military ranks. I want to repeat myself. And the Bible says, tell them the truth. If they fail to take it, then you will not be held responsible for what will come next. Yes, like Archbishop told them in Parliament, this will happen. And it is bad, and then it happened. So he has no case to answer before God. And my work is to remind you that do not camouflage. Leave those things to those who are supposed to have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've heard about the issue of the national dialogue for quite some time, but this is my thinking. If even iPod failed, do you think you can ever achieve anything out of the national dialogue? No wonder it is not happening for all this long you're talking about it. I think, Canon, this is yours.
Yeah. I quite understand your frustration, my brother and sister. I do, because we share that frustration. There is something they call time, being in season, the right time for certain things to happen. And I think when we initiated, this was after 2001, we had a bad election, post-election challenges. And so as faith leaders, when we were reflecting on those events, that's how we came up with this whole idea of saying, short term, let's do some mediations. You remember we mediated, we went to, I think, USJ was not allowed to come out of his house. We mediated that, and we did a lot of mediations. But then we're looking about long term, and we realized that there are a number of issues, unresolved issues, historical past, that have also got to do with our chemistry, political chemistry, I think composition, that needed to be addressed. That's why we came up with the idea of a national dialogue. And you remember that we did national consultations to get citizens to contribute which areas of concern they had. So, whereas it appeared to be welcomed by everybody, when it came to implementation, it became really difficult. And so we could not really progress as we had intended, as the religious leaders had intended. Of course, we had brought on board other stakeholders. Every sector was part of that conversation. And so we thought it was going to be a transformative process for the country and creating freshness, in terms of political, socio-economic life. That was the intention. Now, that passed. That has passed. And I think we are now in a different season, if you like, as a nation. And the factors that are worrying us, some of them have their roots in those things that we wanted to talk about. So my brother, the thing when you're doing nation building is not to give up. So we should be asking, what are the opportunities that we have to engage around the issues of concern? That's why, for instance, in elections coming, we talk about a peace pledge. Again, to remind ourselves as stakeholders and citizens of Uganda that there is something we can do. If we all pledge that we'll have a peaceful election, why not? We can. you know. So we are really asking and pleading with the citizens, first, not to give up your country. Don't give up. You know, this is Mother Uganda, this is where we are, this is where we need to realize our aspirations, this is where we want our children to live. So let us not give up our country. Let us also challenge ourselves. Let's learn from the past. You know, there is a saying, I forget how it goes, but there are people who, it is the stupid people who repeat their mistakes. Let's learn from the past. Violence does not pay.
It destroys.
It destroys.
It doesn't add on.
You know, it doesn't add. And therefore, it is naive of anybody to think that violence is also a means of national management. You know, we are deceiving yourself. So I think what we need to do by not giving up our country is to still hold on to those positive things that are important for us as a nation. And I think I won't promise you that, yes, in the public, perhaps in the public eyes, you think that the faith leaders are not doing much as we should. Yes, there are weaknesses as with individual persons. Yes, we agree and share that blame. But we want to reassure you that at the heart of the Intelligence Council, there is a real commitment to ensure that we build on those values that are important for us to move on as a country.
Okay.
There are challenges, we also know, and you also know, there are challenges, there are obstacles, but I think we are trying to do our very best to use various mechanisms to engage around our stakeholders, duty bearers, to open their eyes that really, if we invest in violence, we are going to reap violence. If we invest in shared economic growth, then we are working towards stability of the nation. If we focus on the vulnerable groups of the youth and others, we minimize the potential for instability in our country. So there are these truths that we know, which we must begin to live out and become propagators of.
Thank you so much, Canon. This one is a heavy one. Days back, Christians used to solicit money and buy for their leaders either a bicycle or a motorcycle or even a car, if it was at that level. Today, whether it is a bishop or archbishop that is getting into a new office, they are assured of a new ride from the president. Now, Intelligence Council should be also receiving some funding from State House or maybe the government. Therefore, how can you be just in handling some of these issues, especially issues that involve the ruling government, the very hand that feeds you, fuels your cars, and probably pays for your security, because some of the religious leaders have security personnel that guard them. I will end at that.
That's a very good one. You see,
and Reverend, this is your friend.
Yeah, we are mixing up issues. And when we are talking about nation building, we shouldn't go emotional. And once we go emotional, we may think that we are the only ones doing the rightful things and demanding for the rightful things. One day I'm going to carry out research. I will come here and give you figures those political parties get from the government.
A lot. Especially the leading opposition party. But every political party that has representation.
I don't want to just to use assumption, but I need to carry out and find out how much each political party gets from the government they are competing with. And they tell us what they have done with that money. Have they built a hospital? Have they built a road? Have they built a school? Have they done any social service to Ugandans with those billions they get? So, what we are trying to say here, that there are issues that are for common good that we should address. If the state chooses to facilitate religious leaders, we are leading taxpayers in the churches. These are the people who pay the taxes. So it can choose and say, back to the community, because we are leading these very people who pay the taxes. And now the government is collecting taxes from them, and they say, okay, we are buying a bicycle. Is that bad? It is not corrupting me. It is facilitating. The same way they are facilitating the opposition parties with billions of money. And actually, when you go political enough, you would even say, okay, let them spread their expenditure. How they are using these billions to transform the lives of their followers. So, the issue of facilitating religious leaders with vehicles, with the maybe supporting IRCU, yes, we are doing supplementary work to what the government is supposed to do. Why should we expect America to support IRCU? Why should we expect a certain NGO from European Union or UK or China to come and support IRCU? Yet the work we are doing is supposed to be done by the government of Uganda. When I talk about health, I go deeper. When I talk about peace, I go deeper. So when we are doing supplementary services to support the government, where is wrong? And where is the issue? Why not the government to support my activities? I'm saying, government, look here, with the nuts in the open space, my constituency is not benefiting. We want our special Chimegero. And then the government says, okay, we have given you 100 cows. And when I go down there in my congregation, up here when I'm receiving, they will see Reverend Wejuli receiving as a religious leaders. But when I go down there, I have my congregation. That congregation is comprised of different political parties, whom I call my congregation. So I will sit down and say, you yellow guys, don't come here. Now it is me and the congregation. Who is this one? Take this cow, take this cow, take this cow. Which is very hard for these guys to access these cows from outside there. So that's not bad. And when the government says, I'm facilitating you, it doesn't mean that I'm too pro-government. And actually, when they come in government with that perception, it will be very hard for them. Because these people are human beings and they will remember. And I want to remind the people who are posting things on internet. Internet will store this information permanently there. It will be retrieved and used against them. You used to say, you cannot do this, but this is what you are doing. They will need these people, and they will come to them, and they will end up almost doing the same. And if not the same, they will buy themselves dearly.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. So it is not a matter of everybody who gets support from the government, everybody who earns the salary from the government. I've seen so many civil servants who earn monthly and huge amounts of money, but they are not pro-government.
Yeah.
So the government is a central institution for everybody to benefit. Not to say, since you are beating people, So I'm not taking your money.
Reverend, give us your closing remarks as before I come to Canada.
I want to thank Family TV for giving us this opportunity to come here and share views with our viewers and Ugandans. But for me, I would like to pray that when we are to make positive and profitable contributions to the nation building, we should come up with ideas that are so positive and constructive. Because today we have NRM in the government, the other day we'll have another party. And when we hammer nails and say, this one is a no goes on, this one is a no goes on, and yet this is the very government which is collecting, levying us heavily, and then they support political parties with billions of money quarterly. And we say when they give a small car or a pen to a bishop is a crime. That's very wrong. I want to thank you for viewing, and I want to thank you, Mukalazi, for hosting us. And I pray that next Wednesday, God willing, we'll be here. I want to send my greetings to the appointing authority of IRCU and the entire IRCU fraternity. Blessings.
Thank you so much, Reverend Canon. Your closing remarks as we wind up.
I want to appreciate very much this opportunity for us as IRCU to speak to the nation. Thank you, Mukalazi, for organizing us and for the professional way in which you run this program. Fellow citizens, we have a task to build our nation, and that task will only be fulfilled if each one of us, depending on where you are located, begins to live the change you desire to see. As a parent, what change do you want to see in the nation? So how are you going to work with your family? How are you going to relate with your children, your wife, in shaping that Uganda you want to see? Similarly, priests, we have big responsibility. Religious leaders, sheikhs and imams, we have a big responsibility to provide leadership in a country that is suffering and bleeding in certain ways. And therefore we need to bring healing. And so are you an instrument of healing? Are you an instrument of reconciliation in your community? Lastly, those who are called political leadership, you have a big responsibility to ensure that you create an enabling environment for everybody to thrive. Let's stop looking at our national responsibility in terms of political parties, in terms of religious affiliations, ethnic. Let's stop that. That is not developmental. It's not taking us anywhere. We need to develop a much more holistic, inclusive, and compassionate way of working so that we exercise our responsibilities in a manner that will build a healthy nation. So we plead as IRCU, forgive us where we failed you, but we want to plead that we will do our very best to contribute to do our best to contribute to a peaceful election. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Canon Grace, and thank you so much, Reverend Julian. To your viewer, we appreciate you, especially the fact that you've watched us for these 2 hours and the fact that you have also raised your concerns. I believe they have been responded to. We meet again next week, same time, same place. And from the entire team, we wish you a blessed afternoon.